Hi everyone, in today's lesson we're going to start putting together the pieces of our story. So at this point you should know your character pretty well. We've written our character into a bunch of different scenes. We know things they want, we know people they interact with. So now we're going to take that work and create a story outline. Next week we'll flesh this out a little more, we'll turn it into something and start actually creating it, but today our goal is just to make an outline. So we're going to look back to the story elements, all the stuff that we've looked at as we were reading as readers, and now we're going to use them as writers. So I'm going to take you back to Freytag's pyramid. This should look familiar. It's all the different elements of story. So we have the exposition or the opening, the inciting incident, the rising action, the climax, the falling action, the resolution. This one won't be required. If you want to put it in there and you remember working with that, you're welcome to do it. But we're going to focus more on the opening, rising action, climax, falling action, and then our closing or resolution. Like I said when we covered this, everything revolves around conflict. So if you don't have a conflict for your story, you don't have a story. So what you need to do first is to think of what's the conflict that you want to write about. Again, this isn't going to be a huge project, so you want to think of a small, manageable problem for your character. They're not going to be saving the world in just one small story. It should be something that is important to them, something that goes along with their character. So I would go back to my original chart for my character and think about what traits are most important for my character, who might they have a conflict with if it's with another person, or what kind of thing would be a conflict for them. And then I'm also thinking, are there going to be other characters in my story? They're just going to be focused on my one person. Again, thinking about some of those things that we do as writers, those strategies. Do I want dialogue in my story? Is it going to end up just being my one character, kind of thinking inside their own head? So I went back to my original character trait chart or character parts of the character, and I'm looking again, like my character is quiet, he's friendly, he's stressed by home life, he's stressed by school life. So I'm going to try to pick one of those things, like something at home or something at school that's going to get on his nerves. Maybe something about his focus, getting too focused on one thing or not having enough focus. So using that, I decided I'm going to focus on school, and I think I'm going to focus on school work. So kind of a loose outline of my conflict is Aiden realized that he spent too much time worrying about how many assignments he had and didn't actually get any of them done. So that's going to kind of be my entry point into my story. I know my climax is going to revolve around that. So next I'm going to go through and I'm just going to make a story arc or a loose outline of my story. I'm going to say this is what might happen in the opening, in the rising action, in the climax. For some of them, so I want to think of it through scenes because that's what we've been working with. We've been writing small scenes for our character, and that's how I'm going to think about my outline for this. So like my exposition or my opening, it might need 2 or 3 different scenes for it to make sense to my reader, or my rising action might need 2 or 3 scenes. So I'll ask you to have at least one scene for each of these in your outline. You're not going to go and write all of those yet, but you might need more scenes. So if you're going to add in any extra scenes when you go to the actual assignment, just kind of add those extra ones in. Let me know that you're going to have multiple scenes there. So you'll see in mine that I ended up needing 2 scenes in my rising action, but I'll just kind of walk you through the vision I have for my story right now. You're not stuck to this. Like when you sit down to write your scenes next week, you might toss them out, you might add some in, you might completely revise one. But here's how mine's going to open. My opening, I think it's going to be a repetition of scenes of just Aiden in each of his classes. So like the actual writing that I'll do when I get there is going to be Aiden sitting down at the end of his math class and getting homework, sitting down at the end of his English class and getting homework. So that's my opening. My rising action is going to be Aiden walking home from school, looking at his planner, trying to figure out what assignments he's going to do. And then this is still going to be in the rising action because I'm not quite at my climax yet. A repetition of Aiden avoiding his work. He's cleaning his room, he's having dinner, he's getting supplies ready at his desk, like all the things that we can do to make sure that we don't do work. I think I'm definitely familiar with them. Some of you guys might be as well. So we have that, and it's all leading to this climax, right? Things are building up. I'm trying to drag these scenes out. My climax is Aiden kind of looks over at the clock. He sees it continuing to count down. Midnight hits. Aiden knows that he has to be up early in the morning to get back to school. He hasn't written a single word for any of his assignments yet. And he just kind of like all his energy comes together. He decides he's going to do nothing and he goes to sleep. So my climax has happened. My character, and remember, in climax, our character is usually making a decision. So his kind of non-decision becomes a decision that he's not going to do his work. My falling action is the next morning he wakes up, and this is kind of my twist, my surprise. He feels lighter. He doesn't continue to feel stressed. He feels like he's made a decision. The reader, I'll reveal it now, but the reader won't know what that decision is. But he's walking to school, letting us know that he feels a little lighter. And then we see at the end, the story ends with Aiden walking to school early. And we kind of hear his internal thoughts or monologue that he's going to go to the English teacher's class and ask for help finally for the first time. So this is kind of a big thing for him. And I feel like I've been thinking about some of the stories we've been reading this year. They don't always show me the last thing, so I'm not going to show Aiden asking for help. I'm not going to show him actually solving it, but I'm going to show us that he's made a decision that he's going to do that. So that's my outline for my story. Next week when I start looking at it, I'll pick some of these scenes and start writing them. I'm not necessarily going to ask you to write all of them. So if you end up having 10 or 12 different scenes here, don't worry, that's not too big because we're just going to pick a couple out next week. So you are going to create this. You are going to come up with a conflict. You're going to come up with an outline for your story. So the assignment will be set up for that. Just make sure that you have at least one scene for each story element. You may need more. Put in as many scenes as you need. Just make it clear when there's a different scene going on for each.